College football is finally here as the 2017 season kicks off tomorrow night, August 31st, 2017. There were some games this past weekend. I'll get to those here in a bit, but finally, thank the Lord, college football is back. Football is back in general. The NFL will be starting next Thursday, September the 7th. The preseason is currently going on. The final preseason game is tomorrow night for every single team in the National Football League, except now for the Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboys. Due to Hurricane Harvey hitting the Houston area, the game was moved to Dallas at AT&T Stadium, but has been since canceled. Any money that was raised via ticket purchases will still be donated to the hurricane relief. So if you haven't already as well, go donate. It doesn't hurt to donate $1 to a hurricane relief fund, especially to a major city like Houston, Texas. So just imagine if you were in their situation, you would be wanting help at this time. So go donate if you haven't already. As I said, that game is in the NFL. We're talking college football though today. 2017 season, as I said, is upon us. The 2017 season will be kicking off tomorrow night officially with a couple of good games. This weekend is filled with some great games, though, I'll say that, including the Alabama-Florida State game Saturday night in Atlanta, Georgia on ABC. College Game Day will be in Atlanta. College Game Day will actually be in Bloomington tomorrow night for that Ohio State-Indiana matchup, and then also in Atlanta Saturday, and then also on Monday night when Tennessee plays Georgia Tech, also in Atlanta, Georgia. So let me get into my predictions for week one. That's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to be giving you guys my week one predictions, who I think will beat who this upcoming weekend in the sport of college football. As I said, though, this past Saturday there were 5 games. Colorado State defeated Oregon 58-27. BYU defeated Portland State 20-6. Hawaii defeated UMass 38-35. The University of South Florida and new head coach Charlie Strong defeated San Jose State 42-22. And then Stanford defeated Rice by a score of 62-7. Nothing real spectacular, but at least college football is finally back on. I know I'm excited. Hopefully, everybody out there, I should say, is also excited. And then I'll get into the games, for this week. Now, starting next week, since there's only a couple games this past weekend, next week I will add into the show who I thought had the biggest upset, what the best game was, and then teams that impressed and disappointed. So, first game then tomorrow night to kick off the year. As I said, Ohio State goes to Bloomington, Indiana. It might be the biggest game in Indiana football history. I said that on my 2017 college football preview. Go check out that video. It should be one video before this video on YouTube. So go watch that. I know it got pretty lengthy there, but I had to get in what I wanted to say. But Ohio State goes to Indiana, as I said, might be the biggest game in Indiana football history. Mainly because both teams, it's a conference game. Both teams are in the Big Ten. It's a conference game. To kick off the year, this has never happened before, especially on a Thursday night. Normally, Big Ten teams only play on Saturdays. They're playing on a Thursday night now, and then there is a Big Ten game on a Friday this weekend as Wisconsin host Utah State. There will be other Big Ten matchups against conference opponents and non-conference opponents on Fridays this fall as well. But Kevin Wilson, the former Indiana head coach, was fired, let go, whatever you want to call it. He's now the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. So he's going back to where he has lived at and spent his past 6 or 7 years with a different team now, and a team that really going into the season is a big favorite to win the national championship this year. I actually picked Ohio State to win the national championship this year. If you did not see that college football preview video, I just spoiled the news for you there. So you can still go watch it, but Ohio State, I think, will go into Bloomington. I think it is, they're too powerful for Indiana. Indiana does have, obviously, the new head coach since Kevin Wilson is on there, and Tom Allen. He was the defensive coordinator for them this past season. I don't know if he really has what it takes to be a head coach at the collegiate level. Indiana really hasn't been good since Saul beats me. Hell, I don't even know when. Me personally, probably since the last time they were good was probably when they had Antoine Randall L. when he played quarterback for the Hoosiers before going to the NFL and playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins. But other than that, Indiana football, I've never known Indiana to be good in football. Indiana's always been a basketball school. So I think Ohio State is just going to be too powerful. I think they'll go into Bloomington, pick up the win, win Thursday night, tomorrow night, August 31st. Today is August 30th. I know I said in the other video too, if you watched that as well, I was going to record this after I did my preview. Well, I had to, go through that video and do everything I needed to do to it. And I just didn't have enough time last night to record this then. But so here I am now, August 30th, recording this, giving you my week 1 predictions for the 2017 college football season. So I think Ohio State will go into Bloomington and pick up the victory. I think this game will be closer than what a lot of people think. I could see a final score of, say, 34 to 23. I think Indiana's offense and Richard Lego, and especially Kevin Wilson, being the offense coordinator for Indiana previously, as he was the head coach as well. But I think Richard Lego, he's a great quarterback. I think he's going to throw for probably over 200 yards tomorrow night, and it'll be a tough test for Ohio State, but I think Ohio State will come out on top. Then on Friday, I got 2 games here. I believe I have 16 games total, if I'm not mistaken. Friday night, then, September 1st, Colorado State plays Colorado at Sports Authority Field in Denver, Colorado. I'm going to take the Rams in this game. As I said, they played this past weekend against Oregon State at home, and they blew them out 58-27. Gary Anderson, speaking of Utah State a second ago as well, they go to Wisconsin. He was a head coach for the Aggies there for a short time before going to Wisconsin then, and now he's at Oregon State. And really, I don't think it has turned into the type of tenure he would like up there in the state of Oregon. But I'm going to take Colorado State just because they pounded Oregon State last week. And Colorado, they're coming off a great season last year. Mike McIntyre won Coach of the Year, and they finished second in the Pac-12, one of the best conferences in college football last year, as Washington won that conference and then went into the playoff before losing to Alabama. Speaking of Washington, they go to Piscataway, New Jersey, and play Rutgers, the program that founded college football. back in the day, back in the late 1860s. Uh, I think Rutgers, though, they really, since joining the Big Ten, they really have been good since I think it was the 2007 season, when at the time Greg Schiano was still the head coach, and they were number 2 in the country, but that was the year of the number 2 curse. Any team that was ranked second in the country ended up losing, while ranked second in the country. So, but since then, Rutgers, they've been a disgrace. I think, leaving the Big East. Well, the Big East dissolved. They go to the Big Ten, and I think they've been a disgrace for football in the Big Ten. Yeah, they're good for everything else, but football-wise, they haven't been so hot. So I'm going to take Washington big over Rutgers. They beat them big last year to kick off the season as well, at home. So this year they go on the road. Speaking of another Big Ten team, just west of Rutgers, the Penn State Nittany Lions, they host Akron out of the MAC. This is the highest ranked Penn State Nittany Lion team to kick off the year since 1999 team, as Penn State is ranked 6th to start the season off this year. I'm obviously going to take Penn State. I'm going to take Penn State week in and week out, no matter who they're playing, where the game's at, what the spread is, what the conditions are. I don't really care. I'm taking Penn State every single week. So I'm going to take Penn State over Akron. The next game then, another Big Ten team, Maryland goes to Austin, Texas, to play the Texas Longhorns and new Texas head coach Tom Herman, as he comes north from Houston, as he was the head coach for the Houston Cougars the past 2 seasons. Speaking of Houston as well, they were supposed to host the University of Texas San Antonio, but due to Hurricane Harvey, that game has been since postponed to a later date. Back to Texas, they host the Maryland Terrapins. I think Texas. I think this game could really be a fun game to watch. It's at noon on Fox Sports 1, and I think Texas, they could be in trouble, but I think they'll pull out in the end, and I think Texas will defeat Maryland. Another Big Ten team. I got a lot of Big Ten teams on my slate here for the Week 1 schedule. It's just how the games played out. I'm not being Big Ten biased. I got some Pac-12 teams in here, and I got some SEC teams and some independents, and pretty much every single conference, if you ask me. But Wyoming goes to Iowa City to play the Iowa Hawkeyes. Wyoming, they finished second in the Mountain West last year, losing to San Diego State. Donnell Pumphrey, who is now the all-time leading rusher in college football history, according to some people still think Ron Dane is, because all his yards, they didn't count bowl games back when he played in the late 90s. I believe that was the 1999 season. Nowadays, they do count bowl games. So Pumphrey had I believe, played in 4 bowl games. So there's at least 400 yards if you average it out to be 100 yards a game onto his record. And he only broke the record by, I believe, about 150 yards. So, say he doesn't play in those bowl games, Ron Dane's still the all-time leading rusher in college football history. But Wyoming, so lost San Diego State, come off great season. I think they'll have another great season this year, but I think it's just going to be too tough going on the road to open the season. They do have a great quarterback in Josh Allen, getting a lot of hype at the moment. Could be a top 5, top 10 pick in next year's NFL draft. We'll have to see about that. Now, Iowa, they did lose to North Dakota State the second weekend of the season last year. It might have been the third weekend. I know it was during the non-conference slate, but North Dakota State is North Dakota State. They're not Wyoming. North Dakota State has won. how many Division D1 AA national championships. So I think it's just going to be too tough for Wyoming, against Iowa this Saturday. Another Big Ten team then, Michigan, they play a neutral site game against Florida down in Jerry World at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. I think Michigan's going to come out on top in this game. Both teams are wearing alternate jerseys. Michigan is wearing all maize, and Florida is wearing all blue uniforms this Saturday at 3:30 on ABC. There has been a lot of trash talk, as I said in my college football preview video the other day, between both head coaches and players. Florida, they did have 7 players suspended a couple weeks ago. Well, they just added 2 more to that list today, so they have 9 players suspended for this matchup. So I'm going to take Michigan. I think Michigan's just going to be too powerful for the Gators. This is also a rematch of the Citrus Bowl from 2 years ago, when Michigan blew out Florida by a score of 40-7. Temple then goes to South Bend, Indiana to play Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's going to come out on top in that one. Western Michigan then goes to USC. I think USC is just going to be way too tough for the Broncos. And then App State, though, they go to Athens, Georgia to play the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, App State, when they kick off the year, last year they went to Tennessee and Knoxville, took the Volunteers to overtime, ended up losing. But everybody knows App State as the team back in 2007 when they went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and knocked off, I believe Michigan was ranked. They were ranked in the top 5. I don't know what ranking they were to start off the year. They were in the top 5, though, I'll say that. And they knocked off the Wolverines by a score of 34-32. I think App State, they've gotten so much better since then, too, because back then they were a D1 AA school. That's why it was a big-ass deal. And that was a big deal for North Dakota State last year going to Iowa City, but, with how many national championships in their pocket, too, before that, that's a little bit different than App State going to Michigan, especially Michigan, as I said, being in the top 5 at the time. From going D1 AA to the D1 now, App State, they've really, really grown since then. That's 10 years ago already. I think they'll compete with Georgia in Kirby Smart's squad, but I think Georgia's going to be too tough, and I think App State, I think Georgia will defeat App State, probably by, I think it'll be a low scoring, probably I'd say 20 to 14. I think Georgia will score a late touchdown and come out on top in that one. Another neutral site game then is Louisville and Purdue. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana, at Lucas Oil Stadium, home of the Indianapolis Colts. Louisville, they're returning Lamar Jackson, the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. Purdue, new head coach Jeff Brom, coming from Western Kentucky. A little connection between Western Kentucky and Louisville. Bobby Petrino, the current Louisville head coach, was the Louisville head coach before, then went to Arkansas, had that motorcycle accident, got fired, took a leave of absence, whatever the hell you want to call it, then took a year off, recuperated because he was cheating on his wife, and then went to Western Kentucky. He goes to Louisville then, and then they bring in Jeff Brom, who is now at Purdue, so you got this Purdue-Louisville matchup. And Purdue going back to Indiana, not really, me personally not knowing Indiana to be good in football. I have seen Purdue be good in football, and that goes back to the Joe Tiller days. They have, I think this is either their 3rd or 4th head coach since Joe Tiller, but I think with Jeff Brom, I think they'll get back on track, and they'll Purdue, I think, will compete in the Big Ten West this year with Nebraska, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Iowa, and possibly Minnesota if PJ Fleck can get his team going. So don't be surprised if I'm going to say Purdue's a dark horse to win the Big Ten West as of now, August 30th. But I'm going to take Louisville in this game. I think Lamar Jackson's just too good. I think he's going to probably throw and run all over their defense. And then I'll save this next game for last because it's the biggest game of the weekend. Probably the biggest game other than national championship games. A lot of people have seen in the past 30 to 35, maybe 40 years, and that's Florida State and Alabama. Florida State, the third-ranked team, and Alabama, the number one team in the land right now. Like I said, the game's in Atlanta, and I'm going to save it for last. So sit tight on that one. BYU then plays LSU, also in another neutral site game. The game was supposed to be in Houston, Texas at NRG Stadium, but due to Hurricane Harvey, it has been since moved to New Orleans, Louisiana. I think LSU's just going to be too tough. You got an SEC team going up against a independent school in BYU. I think LSU's just going to be too tough. I'm going to take the Tigers in that one. And then there is two games on Sunday, September 3rd, and then one game on September 4th, Labor Day 2017. The first game on Sunday is Texas A&M at UCLA. I think UCLA will win that one. And then West Virginia plays Virginia Tech in Landover, Maryland, home of the Washington Redskins. I'm going to take Va-Tech in that matchup. Both teams entering the season ranked in the top 25. Actually, Virginia Tech's 21, West Virginia's 22. I think it'll be a great game come Sunday night, but I think Virginia Tech is going to come out on top. I think Justin Fuente will outcoach Dana Holgorsen. And then the only game then on Monday night, Labor Day night, is Tennessee and Georgia Tech, also in Atlanta. I'm going to take Tennessee over Georgia Tech. Don't be surprised if Georgia Tech comes out on top because of their defense and Ted Roof. And then the last game on the card is Florida State and Alabama. As I said, number 3 against number 1, neutral site in Atlanta. Pretty much, right in the middle of both teams. Florida State's coming up from Tallahassee, which is on the Panhandle, and then Alabama's coming east from Tuscaloosa. I am going to take Alabama in this matchup. I think it's either, like I said yesterday in the college football preview for the year, it's either going to be real high scoring because both of the quarterbacks are going to be letting the ball fly all over the place, or these defenses are going to be making every single stop, and it's going to be a really, really low scoring game. But I still have Alabama coming out on top, and it's going to be a preview of two of mine at least. I think two of a lot of people's Heisman hopefuls as well, and DeAndre Francois from Florida State, the quarterback from Florida State, and then Jalen Hurts, the quarterback from Alabama. But I'm going to take Alabama, so roll tide in that one. And then next week, I'll review the first weekend college football season, give you a preview of the NFL Week 1, and then also tell you biggest upset I thought, best game I thought, and then teams that impressed and disappointed. So I'll see you then.